Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for our third community workshop, Parent Advocacy, Tips on Advocating for Your Child in Special Education. Our two previous workshops included Turning 3 Years Old, where we provided information on what to expect when your child goes from early intervention services to the district of residence for special education services. The second workshop was Understanding Special Education, where we covered the IEP process, laws and regulations, as well as reviewing the IEP document and its contents. My name is Christine Gamberg, and I'm the Education Support Manager here at ALTA. One of my roles is to serve as the liaison between the Regional Center and the Special Education Local Plan areas, county offices of education, and the local education agencies in our 10-county catchment area, as well as to provide workshops for our service coordinators and the communities we serve. My professional background prior to joining ALTA was as a special education teacher and a program specialist in a local school district. I joined ALTA in March of 2022 as a service coordinator in the children's unit and began my current role as education support manager in January of 2023.
My name is Tara Cawthon-Argerich. I'm the special education specialist here at ALTA. My role is to provide consultation and training around special education procedures, processes, laws, and regulations. I joined ALTA in 2023 as a children's service coordinator and transitioned to this role in 2024. Prior to ALTA, I was working in a district for around 7 years. I was a paraeducator, and I loved it so much that I pursued a credential in mild to moderate disabilities and became a special educator. I taught ELA, science, and math in my years teaching, and then I also case managed a wide range of students ranging from RSP setting to SDC settings.
So our agenda for today is what is advocacy, where we'll define what advocacy is, types of advocates, ways to advocate for your child in an IEP, and that would be how to plan and prepare before the IEP, what to ask, questions to ask during the IEP, and then how to navigate those documents after the IEP. We'll also provide some resources that are hyperlinked for you to peruse and use at your discretion. And then also we will have time for questions, and throughout the training, if you'd like to put some questions in the chat, that would be those will be answered at the end of the presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was you, Tara. So what is advocacy? Advocacy is the act or process of supporting a cause or proposal. One second, okay. So we chose that in the from Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and the heart of advocacy is collaboration. So as the parent, it is your role to advocate and support your child in the IEP process, since you are essentially their voice at the IEP meetings. And although some IEP meetings can become adversarial, the most effective teams are the ones that are collaborative and include discussions and conversations about what services and supports would provide your child with the most educational benefit.
So the first part of advocacy that we'll be discussing today is and are the types of people or advocates who are involved in an IEP and who you can invite to an IEP. It's highly encouraged to have people with you at an IEP to support you and your student. So we'll be diving into the different types of advocates that can come to an IEP with you. The first one is lay support. So these are individuals who have specialized knowledge and expertise of your child, as well as community resources outside of the education environment to support families. So some examples of this could be your ALTA service coordinator, family or friends, community services, and service providers. So like ABA companies or speech therapies that we're receiving outside of school could also assist there. The next one is an educational advocate. So these are individuals who will have specialized knowledge and background in special education laws, regulations, and processes. Some examples of this would be ourselves, so myself and Christine, our education support team at Alta, and family resource centers or family empowerment centers like Warmline, Family Soup, or Help Me Grow. Some nuance here to kind of keep in mind is some lawyers and attorneys also refer to themselves as educational advocates, so be aware of that nuance. And diving into education, lawyer, and attorney. So these are individuals who hold a law degree focusing on special education legislation, litigation, compliance. Lawyers or attorneys can provide legal advice and navigate families through complex cases leading to mediation or due process. So again, some examples here would be law firms or practices or the Office of Clients' Rights and Advocacy. School personnel are also considered to be advocates in an IEP. They are working with your child to identify and provide appropriate support services and programs. So some examples here would be the special education teacher, general education teacher, related service providers like OT, speech, APE, so on and so forth. Administrators, so principals, vice principals, and assessors as needed. So if we're in a triennial year or we're being evaluated for the first time, those assessors will also be able to advocate for specific needs that they've identified through testing. And finally, parents, family, and friends are also considered to be advocates. You are the educational rights holder. Extended family members, friends, anyone invested in your kiddo's learning, it's a great idea to have them there to support you and support your kiddo. So some examples, again, parents, guardians, caregivers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors, families, or friends.
Okay, so before the IEP and how to plan and prepare for that IEP that's coming up. So the first one, and it's very important to understand the procedural safeguards, and I will give a brief overview in the next slide, but the IEP teams, they're required to provide you a copy when you request a copy, the first time your child is referred for a special education assessment. So in those initial IEP assessments, when they're determining whether your child is eligible for special education, each time you are given an assessment plan to evaluate your child. So if there's any additional assessments after your child becomes eligible, or in those 3-year evaluations, every 3 years, students or your child will be reassessed to determine if they continue to be eligible for special education. Upon receipt or due process complaint in a school, and then when the decision is made to remove, for a removal that constitutes a change of placement. So if your child is for whatever in receiving speech and language and resource help where they're pulled out of the classroom to work on academics, and they're recommending a change of placement to a more restrictive placement such as a special day class, you would be provided those procedural safeguards. What we've noticed in best practice is even if the above 5 are not happening and it's just an annual review, the IEP teams will pretty much offer you those procedural safeguards and ask if you have any questions. So it's beneficial if you do have any questions and you want your rights or procedural safeguards explained to you, to ask at that IEP meeting, and somebody from the team will explain those procedural safeguards to you. So for more context, I have a brief overview of the procedural safeguards. So they're bulleted. Parents have a right to participate in the IEP process, receive prior written notice if the district refuses or proposes a change to requests or services and programs on that IEP. You have the right to consent or refuse consent for assessments and or services. So they cannot provide any assessments unless you provide written consent. Non-discriminatory assessments of the student, independent education evaluations if there's a disagreement with the assessment results. So the district does have the right to assess initially, and if you do disagree with those initial assessments that the district has provided, then you are able to ask for that independent education evaluation. Access to educational records, stay in the current program if there is a disagreement about that placement, be given a hearing regarding disagreements about an IEP, receive mediation, file a complaint against your school district, be informed of school discipline and alternative placement, and also to be informed of policies regarding children who attend private schools. So ways to plan and prepare for that upcoming IEP. You'll receive a notice of meeting, so it would be advisable to review that. And on that notice of meeting, it'll state who will be invited to that meeting. So it'll include you, it'll be addressed to you. It'll also include the staff or service providers that will be invited to that IEP meeting. There's also a section on that notice of meeting where you can let the team know who you will be inviting. So any outside providers, if you have an advocate, also it will provide the date, time, and location of that meeting. There's also a section, if you need an interpreter, you would select that you require assistance of an interpreter. And then if there is somebody that is invited to the meeting who is part of your child's IEP team, but will not be able to attend, they will include a team member excusal. So that is a separate form. And in order for them to excuse that team member, a parent would need to sign consent that they are okay moving forward with the IEP meeting without having that team member present. If you're not okay with excusing a certain team member and you would like to reschedule that meeting, that you would also list that on that notification of meeting. And then once you review that and you notice everyone who's invited and if everything looks correct and it works for you, then you would return that notice of meeting to the case manager, and that lets them know that you're confirming the date and time of the IEP meeting. Okay, now other ways to plan and prepare is for initial review. So when your child is being assessed for the first time for initial IEPs to determine eligibility, for 3-year evaluations, and if there are additional assessments once your child does have an active IEP, it's important to request drafts of the assessment reports prior to the meeting so that you can review them and you know what to expect. It's advisable also at the beginning, once you sign that assessment plan, to notify the team that you would like those assessment reports prior to the meeting so that they can plan ahead and do their best to provide those assessments prior to that meeting instead of at the meeting. It is best practice for school districts to provide those documents prior to the IEP meeting. However, it is not a legal requirement. So that's why it's important to let them know when you sign that assessment plan and return it, and they have the 60 days to assess your child. It's important to let them know at that time so that they can plan and prepare to provide you with those assessments prior. Also, if your child already is in special education and has an active IEP, it's important to review the previous year's IEPs. So look at what services your child has on that offer of FAPE services page. Look at the frequency and duration, what types of services they're receiving, as well as look at the previous goals and the progress that they have made on those goals. And then you can be well informed of what goals they will propose in the upcoming IEP meeting to see if it aligns with the growth from the previous year. Ask for any work samples that the service providers have collected to determine the progress on goals, and then any other areas of concerns that you do have. Also, if you want to share any other information with the team, you would gather any relevant information, such as private assessments. If you had outside assessments from any psychologists or psychiatrists, any doctor visits that have changed any diagnoses or any medication, any information about the outside activities that your child participates in that would be beneficial to share with the team, as it may have something to do with how they are performing in school, then that you would want to discuss that in the IEP and have it documented on that document. Another way to plan and prepare is prior to the IEP meeting, because a lot of times IEP meetings can be a little bit overwhelming when there's a lot of people around the table, and it's also your child. So it's best to plan ahead and write out before the meeting any strengths. They're going to ask you what you see your child's strengths are, any concerns that you have with their educational progress, and then also questions. So go ahead and plan and write those out so that you're prepared going into that meeting. And you may also ask the case manager or whoever's facilitating that IEP meeting to include those in the IEP discussion so that it's not left out and you feel like all of your questions are answered and any of your concerns were addressed. Also, when your child is being assessed or if they're already receiving services, it's really important to complete any forms that are sent home by service providers. So a lot of times the speech language pathologist or occupational therapist or the classroom teacher will send home some forms for you to fill out, and that's typically that so that they can see how they're performing activities at home, and they can do a comparison to how they're also performing in school.
So now that we've planned and we've prepared, we're ready to dive in to the IEP. And during the IEP, one of the best tactics that I've utilized in IEPs to advocate for certain things are questions. Questions are an effective way to create an open dialogue around what your concerns are, what's going on with kiddo at school and in the IEP. Asking WH questions is very helpful. So again, that's who, what, when, where, why, and how these specific services, supports, goals, all of that stuff will be implemented. And then asking for clarification on specific jargon in special education. There's a lot of acronyms and there's a lot of jargon around specific services and all of that. So never be afraid to ask for clarity around that because there's a lot of nuance. Here are some possible questions to ask. So again, they're those WH questions. We've got at the very top there, what service/intervention is being recommended? Why is this being recommended? What is the goal for this recommendation? What will it look like when it's being provided to the student? Who will be providing this to the student? When will it be provided? Where, how will it be provided? And then finally, how will the progress be monitored? In the line of questions, you can also help to propose solutions. So here are some nice sentence starters to help you initiate some of those questions. Can you tell me more about, for instance, how speech and language services will be delivered in the classroom? Can you help me to understand who will be responsible for monitoring this specific IEP goal or service? Can you provide data to support transitioning out of special education or an SDC class? A lot of the times teams will kind of forewarn parents like, hey, maybe next year we may no longer need an IEP. And then that's the point we would want to ask, hey, well, what data do you have to support that transition? Because it's a pretty big move. And then another one, what I hear you saying is the student will participate in a general education classroom for, let's say, PE and computers. Is that correct? So having those questions is just helpful in having that, again, open dialogue. We're trying to have that collaboration between the team and just really figure out what is best for student. In the meeting, if there are any unresolved issues or time constraints, we want to make a team plan for those next steps. We don't want to put things in a parking lot and have that parking lot disappear. We want an action plan around that. So how will these disagreements be resolved? That should be asked within the IEP meeting. And scheduling a continuation meeting. So if we don't hit all of the areas of concern or all aspects of the IEP, we need to table and then come back together later to discuss these things. We also want to ensure that concerns are addressed and included in the notes portion of the IEP. The notes portion should reflect the conversations we're having, especially if we have those parking lot items that were not addressed, either say like in the IEP document itself or within our conversation. And then finally, our meeting conclusion. So it's important to note that you do not have to sign an IEP at the time of the IEP. You will need to sign for attendance, which is different. That's just saying, hey, I was here. These are all the other individuals who were here as well. And then asking the team for time to review. So it's perfectly acceptable. It's a lot of information most of the time, especially if we are in an evaluation year or it's our first ever IEP. So asking the team, okay, I would like to take some time to review this document and come back to you with my decision. It's helpful to provide a timeline for the team, like letting them know, okay, I'm going to need the weekend or I might need a week to review the draft and I will get back to you. So that way we can get the ball rolling there. Be sure to receive a copy of the IEP document and any reports that were provided during the meeting for your review. One of the important things to remember, any IEP services cannot be implemented or started until we have assigned IEP.
Okay, so after the IEP, so after that meeting is over and you've taken home the documents, what do you do next? So does the IEP review the document and does the IEP mention the eligibility? So they should, if they are eligible, they should list what they qualified for. So what designated disability did they qualify your child for? And that'll be on the front, depending on the district, it'll be on either the first page or the second page. Any upcoming IEP dates. So when is the next annual review? So every year they have the next date, which is a year later. And then do they have the dates 3 years after that date for the 3-year evaluation? Is the IEP clear in terms of goals? So that we use SMART goals and that's specific. So is the goal written specifically to address what they will be working on for that year? Is it measurable? How are they going to measure it? Are they going to say that once they meet 80% accuracy on that goal, and how many trials are they going to have to get that accurate at 80%? Achievable, meaning if they write a goal that is 3 years growth in 1 year, that is not achievable. So they have to look at where your child starts at that time of that meeting, and then write an achievable goal that they could achieve in that next school year, within that year. Also relevant. Is it relevant to what their areas of concern are? Is it relevant to what they are working on in the classroom, but they need extra help? And then time bound, it should state that annual goal by this time next year so that you have 1 year to achieve this specific goal. Also, on the goal portion, there is a place where it says who will be responsible for monitoring that goal. If it's a speech and language goal, then it should say that the speech language pathologist will be monitoring that goal. So they will be collecting the data to present to you or document on that IEP goal how the student has progressed, and also include data that describes how it was tested and how the percentage of accuracy and how many trials they did. Like if they used 5 trials, how many trials out of 5 were they able to achieve 80% accuracy? If that is the if that's the measure that they're using. Also, look at the services on that offer of FAPE or free appropriate public education services page. Look at the services that the district offered, as well as what type of service. Look at the frequency and duration. So if it's speech and language services, a lot of times those speech and language will be written as yearly. So how many sessions yearly are they providing? And does that match what your discussion was in the IEP meeting? Also, duration, how long? 30 minutes? Is that what you agreed upon in the IEP meeting? And does that match what it's written in the services portion? Also, start and end date. So the start date would be the date of that IEP, and then the end date would be a day before the date that it's due. So 1 year. So 364 days prior, that it'll be the start and end dates. And also setting, where will they be receiving these services? Are they going to have someone in the regular classroom pushing in for those services, or will they be in a separate classroom or separate setting to receive those services? Also, on that same page, there is a place for accommodations. So what discussion took place, and did they document what accommodations your child would need throughout the day to be successful in that placement? And then, is the IEP accurate and is it complete? Does it reflect any of the concerns that you discussed in the IEP meeting? Does it reflect the discussion? Does it tell the story of your child as you remember in the IEP meeting? And any verbal agreements that you made, did they document those in the IEP? And that would be on the notes page. So the notes page, like Tara said before, is the narrative of the entire discussion that took place during the IEP meeting. So that's very important to see. We've seen a lot of times where the parents remember a verbal agreement, and then upon looking at the notes page, that it was never documented in that notes section. So it's really important to review that to determine whether they did document any verbal agreements that you did make during that meeting. And then prior to signature, prior to signing that IEP, if after reviewing the IEP document, you notice that there was some incorrect information or there was missing information, that's the time to reach out to that case manager and let them know where the missing information was, or based on my recall, this is what took place, but it's not documented in the meeting. And like we said, the notes page should really reflect that conversation and discussion that took place in the IEP meeting. Also, if you have any requested corrections, review that revised version to determine whether they did change those incorrect information and missing information prior to signing. So anything that you had any disagreements on, also before, you also can sign with exception, and I'll get to that at the end, but I just mentioned that there. Any parking lot items. So prior to signing, the parking lot items, were they addressed? Did you feel like they were addressed prior to leaving the IEP? If not, there can be a continuation meeting where they reconvene. And so that's the time that you would request that date and time. If they didn't already determine a date and time at that first part of the IEP meeting, this is when you would think, if there's enough concerns that you have where you feel more comfortable reconvening, that would be the time to request a date and time to continue that conversation if your concerns are more than what can just be conveyed in an email. After all of that is done, if you feel comfortable, once you review that document, you need to return that signed document to the case manager. So I'll go more in depth with that with exception. There's an area on the IEP meeting where you can sign. There's a part where it says, I agree to all parts of the IEP. If you don't agree to all parts, there's also that where you can say, I agree to all parts with the exception of. And you can also state that on the parent consent form. And then this will allow the team to implement the areas that you do agree with while continuing the conversation around disagreements. And I'll give you an example. There are sometimes, especially with our preschool kids, where the district will their offer will be a special day class with speech and language services and occupational therapy services. And a lot of times at 3 and 4, parents choose to have their child in a full-time ABA throughout the day. So they would have the ability to agree to the IEP with the exception of the special day class. And therefore, the IEP team can move forward with providing those speech and language services and occupational therapy services. So you don't have to agree to the IEP in its entirety. You do have the ability to only agree with part of it and sign for that. And then we have some resources that are beneficial for parents, and they're all stating pretty much the same information. They're just, the layout is a little differently. And Tara, if you can click on, the first two are high quality IEPs. The first one is parent checklist, and the second one is supporting high quality IEPs. And we like this website. It's actually a project that is funded by the California Department of Education, and it's with East County Special Education Local Plan Area and Santa Clara County Special Education Local Plan Area, and they collaborated to come up with a website, not only for families, but also for school personnel. And there's some checklists, and we used a lot of these suggestions from the checklist, and we presented it today. So it's a very user-friendly way to have a list of things that you would need before the IEP, during the IEP, after the IEP. And then the second website is more special education basics, and it states their vision, why they came together with this collaboration, and how you can use this website to determine what the best approach for your child, and also talking about the basics for special education and so forth. The third resource is from understood.org, and that's IEP basics. So again, all these websites have pretty much the same information, just different layouts. So this is for parents to learn about special education laws, regulations, because there are a lot of them. And a lot of them are stated in procedural safeguards. If you need further explanation regarding the processes or the basics, fundamentals, this is a good website for parents. The fourth resource is the STIR, Special Education Rights and Responsibilities, and that's from Disability Rights California. The layout of this is layout is within chapters, and also included on this website are the corresponding regulations. So the federal regulations, as well as the California Education Code regulations that are correlated with each section. Any questions that you have are listed in those chapters, and you just click that link and it'll take you to whatever question you have, and it'll also have the corresponding regulation for it. So the federal regulation as well as the California Education Code. Well, thank you, Tara. And last one, we're not able to give references for attorneys, but we are able to share from the California Department of General Services. We do get questions on attorneys. And this is a list from the state of California for a list of free or low-cost special education attorneys. And those are throughout California. And you would just, a lot of them are remote. So there's a whole list, and they have signed on to either provide free or reduced cost services to parents who require a special education attorney for any type of legal matters where you don't feel like the team, like that you need some representation. And they do have that degree behind them so that they can understand all the regulations and how to file all of that paperwork, and how to support you and present all the information at that IEP meeting.
And I will say, having given this to quite a few parents, it is more on the cost side than the no cost side. So I just want to forewarn there, because that's come up a few times. It is reduced. It's still quite expensive from what I'm being told, and there are a lot of wait lists from what I'm told as well.
Thank you, Tara.
And then do we have any questions? And then I also have our slides from today in the chat, as well as a PDF copy of these slides in the chat as well. Alrighty, looks like we don't have any questions. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining us today.